Welcome to the Badlands, a place I don't think I or anyone I'm going to talk to expected to be. My name is Jared, and for the last 9 months, I've been an out-of-work ad agency senior suit. My last role was the Regional Client Service Director at Grey Singapore, delivering work around Southeast Asia and India. I returned to London last year, fully imagining I'd been in another agency fairly quickly, as had been the case over the last 2 decades, but not so much this time. So I found myself wandering the Badlands. In these 9 months, I've noticed a few odd things in our industry, and I've also noticed a surprising amount of ex-colleagues and clients all in a similar position to me. So I thought it might be helpful and maybe interesting to talk to some of these people, to see how they're doing, discover their experiences, understand what they're looking for, and maybe shine a light on them and their talents, but most importantly, check in with them, as it's a lonely experience being in the Badlands. So please welcome Dawn Cummins. Dawn is a highly experienced analytics and insight strategy director with some big stints at Unilever and Mars, where she left her mark considerably. After a self-prescribed career break, she has inadvertently found herself in the Badlands. So today we discuss her journey from leaving legacies in place to health and wellness, and ultimately the insanity of job hunting in 2024 at a very senior level. So please welcome Dawn Cummins. Dawn, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. We're recording this just after half term, so I have enjoyed my Halloween.
Oh, nice. So you spent Monday drinking like I did, just to kind of
Want to
black out
recover.
yeah. It
Yeah,
was full
something
on.
like that.
Yeah, it was so full on. I actually I commented about it on LinkedIn yesterday, just a bit of a nod of the cap to ex-colleagues who had probably tried to work through previous half terms and school holidays with kids, and I didn't have kids, and I was probably very, come on, why aren't you coming to this meeting? They had stuff to do, look after children. I had no idea until I've then gone through it for the first time, and I was just like, oh my God. It's like, how everyone doesn't end up in the Priory after this, I don't understand. But so it was full on. But he's back at school and he's loving it.
And as are you.
Yes, I really am. Look, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I think, was it a dear friend, Richard Robinson, introduced us?
Yes.
And he's been, clearly, Richard, I know Richard, and he's introduced me to quite a few people. Because unfortunately, like you, like me, there are far too many senior marketeers, what I'd say the client side of the aisle, in a similar position to yourself and me, unfortunately. So I'm going to be putting quite a few chats out over the next couple of weeks. But when you and I spoke, it was clearly you've worked at some amazing places. Unilever used to be a client of mine. Mars I've never done. But you've worked at some amazing places and you clearly do an amazing thing, which I'm sure you'll tell people about in a second. But it's just frightening that someone then again like you is seemingly finding it trickier than maybe you ever have in your career to find your next thing. So it's important to kind of bring these stories to life.
Yeah, well, it's certainly been a humbling experience. So
right.
Put it that way.
Weird,
but I'm happy to share that in case others can relate to it.
Well, it's a big part of these podcasts because as much as, you never know who might listen to this and then go, well, let me call Dawn because I heard her telling Jared about it. You never know. That might happen. But ultimately, I think it's about, I'm seeing more and more quite desperate posts on the likes of LinkedIn and various social channels about the struggles that people are having been out of work for a while and things. So I think it's important for people to understand they're not alone, and it's probably not them. It's a circumstantial thing around the industry and multiple sectors at the moment. So if you and I can shine any little bits of light and insights on our journeys, then, and if it helps anyone, then, it's a nice way for you and I to spend our Tuesday morning. So I think the first thing I always do is just ask the person I'm speaking to give just, a bit of an understanding of who you are, what you've been doing in your career, places you've worked, the stuff you've worked on, and, things you're particularly proud of. Because it just gives a sense to people of like, oh my God, if this person is in this position, i.e. you, then it's clearly there's a larger problem in the works at the moment. So, can you give everyone a bit of a career history and take us up to how and why you ended up in the Badlands, and then we'll get into what that's been like.
Yeah, let me tell you my story. So I'm a global insights and analytics lead. You mentioned I worked for Unilever, but in the last 15 years, I've been holding leadership positions at a local, regional, and global level. So my last 2 gigs at Mars, I was the Global Insights and Analytics Director for Mars Food. I was the functional lead of the Insights and Analytics team. We had a new vision. We built new capabilities, foresight, predictive analytics, and I sat on the global demand leadership team in that role. And then I was asked to move back to Mars Wrigley, confectionery side of the organisation, which I had most of my career in. They'd identified that there was a pain point in brand content and media. So I was asked to build out insights and analytics capabilities for Mars Wrigley's globally. So I recruited a diverse team, and I was responsible for increasing media return on investment. So we built and owned all the global modelling and the rollout and launch roadmap of all the models across Mars Wrigley. Was responsible for quality content. So we did over 400 content pieces of content testing and articulated why things were working to build capabilities in content creation. Over 150 media test and learns. We know that media is fragmenting. And we're responsible for all the brand positioning, comms development, so informing those decisions and choices. And in that role, I sat on the global brand and media leadership team and built and embedded addressable media capabilities through technology and processes, refining the brand growth strategies, cascading this more targeted approach into local media execution. So I'm very privileged to have lots of great stakeholders and partners that bought into this vision. And I left. So the question is, why are you out of work then? Well, I left because I felt that this capability should not have just been within this team that I built and should be integrated into the core organization. So after training marketeers and other insights and analytics folks, my role was no longer required. And so I left as a redundancy. So unlike many other people, I actually entered the Badlands skipping. So very fortunate, like, yay, I'm rocking. I'm a strong leader. This is great success. I'm looking for something bigger, better. I've got a plan. And so then that was at the end, or I should say that was in 2023. And the start of it was, the start of 2023 was excellent. I did paddleboarding and running, and I learned climbing and Pilates and piano and lots of things beginning with P. I don't know why. And then at the end of 23, I thought, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to put myself out into the marketplace. And then really realized that the world had changed since I was last looking for a role. That was how I landed in the Badlands. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was, I had full control of it, which I recognize is very different from a lot of other people. And I have full empathy for those.
It is. And weirdly, I had a similarly nicer entry, but it's still then doesn't ultimately change then, oh no, you're in it. that's ultimately the output. The outcome is, oh Christ, I am in it. I was fortunate enough to come back from Singapore and spend the summer looking after my son last year, and thought, oh well, it's fine, I'll give the recruiter a call and they'll get me a job. And there was a lot of teeth sucking and a lot of kind of oh, and then obviously it's all unraveled. So it's when you and I spoke offline and we talked in depth about some of the stuff you'd done. Yeah, it's what I find fascinating is the stuff you've done at the likes of Mars and Unilever. Every single global brand, big brand, small brand, they all need that level of understanding around their own business, marketing, communications mix, everything. It feels like you should be turning people down at the moment, as opposed to, you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like the state of this, because a big part of doing these chats, and both with people who aren't in the Badlands and from a networking point of view, I'm just getting to speak to really interesting people. So, and there's a weird. Richard Robinson will disagree with this, and actually, Richard and I are going to record an episode in a few weeks' time. And there's he's very positive about the industry and where it's going, but I think maybe it's the algorithm and the feed that I'm now receiving based on doing what I'm doing. But and some of the conversations, it feels a bit doom and gloomy and a bit kind of boring, and stuff work's not great, and performance and brands are struggling. It feels a bit, shitty. And therefore, the type of stuff that you've done and put in place feels like should be highly in demand when it's all about improvement and, performance and, iterative change to get to better places and understanding more. So what the fuck? Why aren't you just Naomi Campbell? Sorry, I don't get out of bed for 10 grand or less a day. Why aren't you in that position? It doesn't make
okay.
sense.
Loving the compliments. Well, I think empathy for those looking, but also empathy for those in business right now.
Yeah.
So they've been asked to deliver an awful lot, and the transformation and the number of ways in which leadership teams, C-suite, are asked to change their business is on many levels, and having to make choices on where that resource goes with less and less money. I get that. I think to do a little sales pitch for myself is, and that's why they need people who think differently about what's possible, because just doing the same thing with less is no longer possible. And
I
think
by
that's
less, do you mean less
challenge.
money? Do
Less
you think, are
money,
you
less
talking less money, less
people,
people? Yeah, okay.
less
So
time.
yeah.
Like everyone's been hit on all fronts.
No, I mean the burnout stories are real, and the friends and ex-colleagues who I know are still grinding away. The stories around, reduced team members, additional scope is commonplace. I'm talking to agency side here, and just that kind of the expectation, and also there's such fear attached to everything at the moment in the UK, and and people are kind of operating in this almost fight or flight, highly anxious approach, and it's not conducive to good. Let's just get it out of the door, or let's not fuck it up. That's almost like, let's not try and win, but let's make sure we go out of our way not to lose anything. And it's such a different mentality than to what creates interesting or different or dynamic or new. Do you know what I mean? It's like
I'd agree with that. I think that's a large. I mean, gosh, that's a larger question than job seeking, or how it feels to have a job and live in fear, or just society. It's a fear
well,
based.
that's where my podcast is going. It's getting bigger.
I think that's what you do. Like it is. You're going to end up having a political podcast at the end of the day.
Don't get me started
Fighting
on that.
for social injustice.
Yeah.
But I think it is a fear based. Everything comes from a place of don't lose, don't find me out, cost of living. So it is a larger issue. I feel that the world of corporates will find its merger. Like I do genuinely believe that once people stop holding on to the past and go, it's okay that we don't know the future necessarily. I think that it will be that corporates and agencies will go, okay, we can deliver on what we're being asked today, even if we don't know what we're going to be asked tomorrow. And out of many different careers being affected by technology and change, I think we were talking about the sound, like the studio managers and the recording, the sound engineers,
Yeah.
AI will put them out of a job for this podcast, for example. But in my line of work, I couldn't have ever predicted 24 years ago when I went into this line of work that it would be so exciting and so transformative to how people live and make decisions.
Right. Yeah, but I think the speed of sort of the change is from an agency point of view and a client's point of view, and I'm talking out of my arms beyond just in terms of my own experiences of it. It's slightly like, the agency world is 100 years old. Been doing it a certain way, last 50 years. People times X amount of hours equals fee. And then technology is slightly as massively disrupted that, yet we're still, as an agency world, trying to put that model out. So I think fundamentally the business isn't quite the business as a whole, and the sector as a whole, hasn't quite adapted to this
Not
new
yet.
world. We're asking individuals to, but I don't think as a whole the sectors have yet. And equally from a client point of view, some of the requests and things that the way that they want to operate in my last tenure at a global level, and certainly in an Asia Pacific level, we're just so kind of want to take advantage of the technology, but we don't want to pay for the. We're not interested in the value of things. It was just like a race to the bottom, but we want a million things by you guys, but we don't want to pay the people to do it. It's just this weird. No one's quite sure on
Well,
what they should be doing at the moment.
yeah, I get that. And there's an evolution, right? So we'll start, if you look at analytics on my field of work, you start with efficiencies. So let's put in how do we improve return on investment? So we put some models in, or how do we eke out cost in supply chains? And then after that, we're talking about, well, and then we build out predictive models. So in Mars Food, we created predictive models. And then after that, we're moving into Gen AI, which is how does it automatically take this and generate something? But it is a pendulum. Like, we've seen these changes before. They've just been on a different axis. So,
Right.
Businesses are constantly globalizing and localizing, or constantly putting strategic thought leadership in or out. Are we investing for growth or investing for profit? So there's lots of pendulums. And I think this one for technology as well. Everyone wants to race to be the most data-driven technology.
It's funny. The pendulum
Will that.
thing is. You're right on the pendulum thing. I think the challenge is you and I, in this very moment in our careers and our time in the Badlands, and there'll be lots of reasons why the roles aren't necessarily there for you and I at the moment, but we're slightly waiting for the pendulum to swing back, maybe in order to then open up some of those roles and fees and budgets to hire people like me and you. And as much as I understand there is a pendulum, it's like, for fuck's sake, come on, swing back. It's like, I can't decide if it's still going. I think the challenge at the moment for a lot of people is it still moving away and yet to start moving back? Is that, I guess, where the fear and the unknown comes at the moment? Yes, yeah. Clearly it will eventually swing back. And I had a fascinating conversation with an old colleague of mine, and we talked about AI in depth. And it's an episode we were part with a guy called Phil Dearson, and he talked about this from how like you just said, it happens every decade in some shape or form with new advent and new technology, which massively has an impact on the way we go about life and business. And the pendulum always swings back. But the moment when you're out of work, it's not knowing, is it still going away or is it on its way back? I don't know. That's the terror, I think, attached to my existence at the moment.
Yeah.
And when it comes back, is there still relevance in my seniority and my role? And there's all these open questions about it. Sorry, this is getting heavy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dawn. This is not heavy at
It is.
all.
It is. But I think a lot of the people that you're talking to, as well on these podcasts, which are coming from very different perspectives, they have perspective, they have experience, and they have leadership skills, and that still holds true whether you're creating a communication for a consumer through one media or the next. So I think all of the skills and the decision making and the perspective still hold true. I think the reason that we're here is, or one of the reasons that I think we want to talk about is like this experience on technology, and the world is opening up to us, but also it feels like it's very impersonal through a job search experience as well.
For sure.
So it's been hugely isolating. So you've heard I'm super positive about technology. You've heard I'm super positive about what value or growth it can unlock for organizations, and how businesses are going to have to adapt how they make decisions to adapt to this technology. But then let me take it from a personal side within the world of job search. Like, that's fundamentally changed versus when I was last on the job market. When I first started, just to age me, I started with the newspaper and a pen. At the start of my career. When I moved from Unilever to Mars, you're right. I had a string of people calling me up, asking me if I'd like to do certain jobs.
Wow.
It was a very personal experience. And the reality is now I've got all this additional experience and value to offer, but it does not feel a personal experience at all. And a lot of that is a direct consequence of what we've just spoken about.
Right.
So we've just talked about algorithms. Well, you're seeing this this feed of desperate stories. Well, if you read one, it's going to serve you more.
No,
like sure. It's the echo chamber of social media. We talk about what does it feel like to apply and hear nothing through easy apply. Well, easy apply means that instead of 50 people putting thoughtful applications in, 500 people are clicking the button, and most of them are not planning on moving or are looking for an opportunity to move to the location of the role. The direct application experience that I've had, and you hear figures quoted like 1% or 0.5%, but the reality is direct application success at a senior or experienced level is low. And I've been in touch with many senior exec search firms, and they're just not carrying the roles that I'm looking for.
Right.
So they've got nothing to offer me. They want help, they can't.
No, of course, because that's how they make their living, by helping you. But just on that, in terms of the roles that you should be doing and applying for, is it that they don't exist, or is it they're vastly underpaid, or they're looking for you plus three other roles combined into one? We're seeing and experiencing that quite a lot at the moment. Certainly the marketing side, I have it on good grounds from a number of people that what used to be described as let's say, a marketing director role. They'd read the JD and go, "Yep, that's a marketing director." Now it's seemingly a marketing director with a bit of a insight stuff, a bit of media, like much broader than just pure marketing strategy. Or and so I get within your field, the type of roles that you might come across, are they what you expect them to be, or are they broader? And are you thinking a bit like, well, they're asking for 3 people here in one, or are you just not seeing them? Do they not exist?
So I've seen very few. So first observation is not all roles are advertised. The second piece is my personal situation is because I'm looking for head of function roles. A lot of the roles I'm looking for, head of function, it's not the specialist agencies in insights and data and analytics that are holding the head of function, because it's the chief growth officer or the chief marketing officer that are seeking to recruit for them.
Yeah.
So you need to go to a different set of headhunters. Then I've seen lack of roles. I've seen the number of roles increase recently. So we're speaking in November, I would say there's certainly more roles in the last 2 months than I've seen in the first half of the year. And when I apply for a job that is appropriate, I've applied for 2 roles, appropriate seniority. One, I got the gold medal, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And one, I got the silver medal, which I'm all right with. So I know where I should pitch myself. I should have confidence that I'm marketable, I've got a competitive skill set. But there's so few of those roles out there.
Yeah.
And therefore you do hit the easy apply button for those roles that perhaps you wouldn't have considered when you first walked out the door. I think that's natural.
It's kind of fight or flight, isn't it? A little bit. It's a bit like, well, I have to be applying for something, otherwise I'm not actually making any progress whatsoever. Because inaction feels so bad and counterintuitive when you're actually trying to dig your way out, of a bad place. But weirdly, the easy apply is so counter to, like you just said, it's an ex-guest, Rachel. She has such a hatred for the easy apply that she wants to start a campaign to ban the easy apply function on LinkedIn. It shouldn't be easy to get a job. It suggests that it's easy to get the job as opposed to what it is lazy. There's no real person probably behind this feed of people sending, we're just going to use some piece of tech to scrape all of these. It's easy for them as opposed to it's not easy for the person. So I think it's winding up a lot of people is the easy apply piece.
Well, my favorite thing about easy, I say favorite in a very British way for any of your global listeners, for your global podcast. But one of my favorite things
There's
is
3 Aussies will probably get it. There's 3 Australians. They'll be fine. They'll understand. Their father-in-law, their mother-in-law. It's fine. They'll understand.
Brilliant. I love that. You go through the easy apply. They write this amazing. They want this visionary, strategic leader. Right? Yeah, that's me. And then they go, how many years programming, computer programming do you have? How many years in Python programming do you have? And you want a really strategic leader. You want someone that offers all that value, and then you want to pay them to computer code. Is that really what you want? And so I never get through the easy apply because it goes, how many years computer coding do you have? And I'm like, oh, well, do I tell them the truth? But the language that I code in no longer exists.
Yeah, so it's almost like, well, I've technically been coding for 25 years, but I haven't done it for 24. You know what I mean? So
because the language I trained in.
Yeah, there's a similar business development question attached to most
senior suit roles now. How long have you been doing business development? You go, well, since day one, essentially, but maybe probably not in the way that you explicitly mean. So,
Exactly.
it's like
I love it.
I just 25 years. I've been doing it since the day I started, because if you haven't, you don't get to 25 years in. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's part and parcel of it in some capacity now. Yeah, so I slightly do like filling those things. I'm like, my God, I look good. I've been doing that 25 years.
Hey,
Unbelievable.
how many years do you have in Power BI? I mean, honestly, as little as possible should be an answer that you could choose. I mean, it's important. Is that how you want me to spend my time? There's a disconnect, I guess, to your original question. What am I saying? These jobs, they want you to do everything.
Yeah.
They want you to be able to do it all. Well, actually, at a certain point, I moved from doing it all. By the way, I was good at doing it all, which is why I progressed and got different career experiences similar to yourself. But I now manage people who do it.
Yeah.
So the world is different. It's a buyer's market. The job specs, the job adverts out there list 27 mandatories. And then they have a diversity statement at the end that goes, "Oh, come and apply, even if you don't hit all of these. We'd love you. We'd love you to come and join us, even if you don't tick all these boxes." Really, though?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's simply not true. It's like I've got 25 of the 26. But no, I'm sorry, I'm just white, man. Oh no. Oh shit. Oh no. That's me out. I'm done.
Well, I've experienced where I haven't necessarily maybe had the industry. So it says, oh, if you don't have all these boxes, we want a diverse workforce. If you don't have all these boxes, still apply. And I'm like, okay, so I don't have industry experience. Maybe I'm going outside of FMCG. So then the feedback goes, oh, you don't have this industry experience. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it literally said at the bottom, you don't need to tick all these boxes. Like,
Yeah. Isn't
what?
it funny? It's funny to sit here and laugh about the insanity. That's really that's what it feels like at the moment. The insanity. I was on the hook for the most famous carbonated beverage in the world, to be part of that team at a global agency, and had a good chat. I've been doing FMCG in Southeast Asia on part of a global team, ticking lots and lots of boxes there. They were fine with me being white and male. That didn't seem to be a problem. And then didn't guess it. And the feedback was, oh, we went for someone who's just come off from a different agency who'd literally just worked on the second most famous carbonated beverage in the world. And they're now going to come and work on this. And I thought, well, that's fantastic. I'm sure they're lovely and they're great and they wanted it just as much as I. But that's such a copy and paste. You're literally changing the logo of what that person, from an you're not bringing any outside input. You're not bringing any new ways of talking or thinking, or it's just such a weird, like, asking people to fit perfectly into all of these things. I understand from a business risk point of view, but ultimately, where's the innovation? Where's the new way of thinking? Where's the, there might be some crossover from doing automotive advertising and marketing communications for the last 20 years into FMCG. You never know. You just never, it's like, until we try it. But at the moment, there just seems to be this lack of any sort of deviation from, we want a copy and paste of the person that's leaving because we burnt that person out and we need a copy and paste replacement of that person, is what it feels like from experiences, not just myself, but a lot of people.
Brought us into a circle. You've cleverly brought us into a full circle, which is people are not taking risks in their hires anyway. So they're just
Haven't
putting
cleverly
the
brought us into it, Dawn. This isn't my first rodeo.
same. I'm quite sure there was much thought behind that.
No, it's true though,
Um,
right? It's the risk piece is a huge thing at the moment. My wife works at a company that does a lot of global research, and weirdly, October, November, on a global level, there's lots of change at a global level. There's the US elections, there's the UK budget. Japan was just announcing some stuff around their inflation rate. There's like all these massive global things that affect, essentially, you and I applying for jobs at the moment. You just don't take into consideration when it's, when you're clicking that easy apply button. But there's the risk attached to the world at the moment is a huge part of it. I feel, again, talking out my arse from anecdotal conversations and having these chats with lots of interesting senior people, starting to feel that it's a major part of this. Risk aversion and fear is a huge influence on both the industry and multiple sectors, not just our industry and sector, but kind of life
and
at
it's
the
hard not
moment.
to carry that. Like being in the Badlands, it's hard not to carry or absorb that, particularly when you're speaking to people, particularly when you feel it at a very personal level. It's hard not to.
Yeah. I'm very aware that my experience isn't necessarily the truth for everyone. 100%, I get that, but like I say, there's enough conversations without me prompting it, particularly when I'm speaking to a lot of people from the other side of the aisle, from the marketing world, client side, as I would call them, who are equally experiencing these things that you and I are touching on. I'm not making this up. I do realize I'm foolishly trying to argue a data and analytics piece with a data and analytics specialist, but my data points are just conversations, and it's and when I layer on my own biased view of it, yes, it feels like that at the moment, and I hope I'm wrong, but it's what it feels like.
Well, it feels like now, and then you'll have a fantastic conversation, and then the world will be great again.
Well,
and that's
I
what
like
that's what I've noticed.
Yeah, well, I like how upbeat you are, and when we spoke the other week, you made me laugh like a drain, largely based on one thing you said in a certain accent, which just still to this day tickle me. But in terms of moving forward, how are you managing this tricky period? Like, do you have a bit of a methodology? I imagine a data and analytics person has a very analytical way of going about job hunting. Please, because I am a haphazard kind of serendipity. Someone will call, and you seem to fly in the face of that from a career point of view.
No, I've got a strategy. I've got pillars of the strategy. Right. I've got and I've got tools and executional plans on how I manage energy and my time. And it starts
How's that going?
with
how's that working out?
Yeah,
and I haven't either. Just I'm sat waiting for the phone to ring, so neither is really working, to be honest.
I would say that it helps me feel in control. So that's the difference. So the control piece is important. I mean, waking up with a sense of purpose is important.
Yeah.
So I have learned over the course of 2024 that not all jobs are advertised. It's networking. Right. And so I've got a set of how am I going to prioritize my time over the course of a week. And I still manage my diary as if I still had a corporate role. So, and the other thing, this is an aside, is it was never work that made me busy. I just make myself busy because I do things like I'm just about to explain. Like I've created this sense of busyness. And so I have to have a word with myself to make sure that all this busyness is of equal value.
Right.
Or if it's not equal value, how do I prioritize those things which are most important? And so the first thing is I prioritize my health. So, and then secondly, I prioritize connecting and networking, mostly virtually. And I sometimes connect with headhunters and I sometimes connect with industry peers. And then it won't surprise you. Oh, and then I do project work. So what I haven't talked about is through networking, I have a number of projects or consulting that I've done over the course of the year, which I've enjoyed. But what's important is I've not prioritized. It's a terrible business model for me to say that when this is going. But
I'll just press the magic AI button and delete that bit if you need.
Yeah, you can press the magic audio button. By that, I mean my outcome is I want a permanent gig.
Right.
Like, that's my outcome. And then I have certain amounts of time for health, networking, and doing project work. Any time on top of that, I've then been used to do training. And you're saying, wow, this is a super complicated system. No, let me tell you how I manage it. I've got a piece of AI technology that rejiggles my diary. So in order with these priorities that I've set it. So I can send out my availability for networking. It looks like I've got this time and then it slots everything in around the meetings and the networking that I do. So there you go. That's how I structure my week. I'm such a geek.
No, I love that. Is that a piece of kit that anybody can easily integrate and use? Like, how are you doing that?
I use reclaim.ai.
Reclaim.ai.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that just so my wife understands how busy my day is, and when she puts in things like, "Can you take this to the post office? Can the cleaners come in?" Like, no, I need my AI assistant to kind of build that around my busy schedule of podcast recording.
But I joke about it, but it means that I don't need to worry about am I spending the right time networking versus
right. Yeah, because I feel guilty if I switch it off, even though it's important to switch off the hunting and the truffle hunting and the kind of snuffling and the networking and it becomes quite consuming if you let it, your own attitude towards it. And I've gone through phases where I've been very structured and been very, what I'm going to do between 10:30 and midday. And that's it, because clicking refresh is pointless. It's just insanity. You may as well be out, like you say, looking after mental health and your general health, or catching up with someone, because you never know where that conversation might go. So weirdly, I have to let go a little bit in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, I took last week off. Like, looking for a job is a job.
It's full time, right?
Or it can be. It consumes as much time as you let it. So last week was term, and I made that decision. I put my out of office on, like I would. I manage my time as if I have a job, job hours. But then equally, I have health as a priority. So on Thursday, I go and do a long distance run Thursday mornings.
Right.
Like, that's what I do on Thursdays.
Okay.
And
thing is, though, is a full-time job. I was going to say, is a full-time job just not going to screw up your quite seamless, sweet life at the minute?
Well, I know. I haven't got. Well, this is what I've learned, though. Like, I fill time. Like, other people will be saying, other people will be in different places emotionally. I get that. And let's use the pendulum analogy again, and we lose purpose and we find purpose again. But right now, and it works well for me because I have high control needs probably, I fill time. Like, I've got training courses, I've got a list of training courses to complete, and oh, I must mention this, just I retrained. I don't know how many of your listeners will also have done the same thing, but having worked in corporate land for such a long time, I then retrained to be an exec coach, and I spent hundreds of hours in textbooks and classroom hours and workshops for these qualifications. And I got out of it and I decided, well, that was interesting. Now I don't want to be it. I want to go back into corporate land. But that was part of my journey to know what I wanted.
I think learning some of those things is, you have to go through it, right? I had a very different, but kind of midlife-y, around 30, I thought, kind of burnt out from a couple of years of pitching constantly and just, burning the candle at both ends in London. And I decided to take a year off and went and worked as a scuba diving instructor in Thailand, thinking, and when I was in London, I thought, you know what? No, I can just go live on the beach, just chill out, take people diving, see the fish, a few beers every night. Perfect. That's all I want in life. After about 4 months, I was so bored out of my fucking mind. I was missing London. I was missing the chaos. I was missing. It's such a weird, I had to go through it to figure it out and go, no. This is where I'm supposed to be. So I think it's important to do some of those things. Although right now, I could probably still be a scuba dive instructor, which is very annoying because there's very little call for that in London. But I digress.
Yet.
Yeah. So just as we start to wrap up, in terms of moving forward, then. So look, you've got an amazing instructor. You're clearly looking after yourself. You're seemingly managing it well. I know everyone has shitty days. I won't presume you don't. In terms of moving forwards, is there anything, like, what would be a dream job for you? Like, if you could go, if I can keep doing my running Thursday mornings, outside of that, this would be my dream job. Like, do you have a view of what that'd be? Because most people don't, and that's what's weird. Even when you're unemployed, you're like, I don't know. Most people just don't know, which is quite a strange thing.
Well, I come at it from a value driver of what gives me energy. So I'm looking for a job rather than a functional description. It needs to have an element of building or creating something. So I get a huge amount of energy for creating a vision and then bringing stakeholders and teams along that journey. The other value is I look to make a sustainable impact. So instead of considering a question about a brand or a brief, I look for a sustainable solution. So I find either a technology or a process to equip the full business to answer all the brand questions for the future. So this is the process you must go through, and then you'll be a self-serve model. So I do look for, how do I create sustainable impact? And then you mentioned creating legacies. I've left legacies like by creating processes and in past roles. So I'm looking for those two things, something to create and have an impact on how decisions are made. And that's how I evaluate.
Just on the legacy piece, two things. Do you check in every now and again and go, you still better be doing it that way, you pricks, after I say it? Or is it like, no, it's fine. It's your baby now. You do with it what you want. And secondly, moving forwards, is that sort of thing something that, is that the sort of thing that a CEO or CTO or whoever is sat there thinking, we need to sort out this stuff at this level? Or is it something that you need to go in and get them to understand that needs to happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, are people asking that question in the first place for you? Hey, can you come and, leave some legacy here? Do you know what I mean? Like, is that a question?
Yeah. So as a consultant, I was speaking to a chief data officer of a bank earlier in the week. As a consultant, I can't say I want to own business problems, because your job is to solve them. So you don't have ownership of the business problem. So as an external consultant, so in my current role, I can't own the business problems. I can only solve a solution. So they need to know that they've got a problem to then seek a solution
right.
using contractors.
Because some businesses just like, weirdly, when you're outside looking in, you can see the issue, but they're not asking you to even explain what the issue is. They just want some solve of something. And you're like, no, if you don't fundamentally solve this, I can't even solve the other thing that you brought me in for, which I've experienced quite recently.
Yes. So I would definitely agree with that. However, my experience has been people giving me the sticky, complicated problems, but I was already on the inside. That's the other thing. So much of solving for it was based on the fact I was already on the inside. I already had a lot of trust within the organization. And therefore, I think I said I had a bunch of stakeholders and a team who trusted me to deliver. And therefore, I didn't have to do a huge amount of justification. You need that amount of change management funding. Off you go. Sign the check. And then off I went for 18 months. So I think it's different from the outside looking in. I think people can only hire for roles when they know the problem.
Yeah.
And it would be...
And it might be with that in mind that, like you were saying before, some of the jobs, some of these things might not be advertised. You almost, through networking, you need to almost network your way into these people understanding the thing that you might be able to come and help with in order for them to go away and think, actually, we do have that thing. We do have that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a almost chicken and egg thing. Which comes first, the
absolutely.
job or the understanding that they need someone to come and solve this? It's such a challenge, I guess.
I'm in a number of, I'm going to call them conversations, but they're conversations which I've unlocked because I've spoken to 6 people before, followed the path of breadcrumbs. And then finally I'm having a conversation where they go, okay, we've got a challenge here. They haven't got a job. They haven't got a job description. We've got a challenge here. And to have that conversation, and that's why every network, every conversation is worth it. And some of them you're going to walk out feeling loved.
Lost it on.
Some of them you're going to walk out and you're really going to feel you're going to feel that your confidence has been.
Okay, listeners, Dawn has dropped off. Maybe Dawn can hear me. I don't know.
Are you there, Jared? Because it's telling me I'm no longer recording.
So my previous role as a suit, I would be vamping in the meeting right now if the screen went down or we were just going to play the film and there was no audio. I'd make some joke and get the client slightly distracted whilst someone furiously out the window was trying to get the IT guys to come in and solve it. Oh, she's fully dropped off this right now. Let's see if she dials back in. Isn't Dawn amazing? Her energy, her upbeatness is super infectious. For everyone listening while Dawn tries to dial back in, I was pretty low this morning before I started talking to Dawn, and now I'm buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. She's so infectious. Her energy is so infectious. Hang on. So I'm going to go quiet, and then we'll edit it, and magically we might then just carry on. So give me a second. There she is.
We can use that magic audio button now.
Well, you just gave me a chance to demonstrate how in various presentations or big pitch meetings, my role was sometimes the tap dancer in chief. Whenever you'd be starting a pitch, guaranteed IT would fail at some point. The projector didn't work, or there's no sound when we're going to play this video. Even though the night before we rehearsed, there was sound on the video. Like, and I think it might have been my scuba dive instructor training, which is largely making sure people don't panic underwater. That's largely the job of a dive master or a scuba dive instructor. You're essentially there to ensure that people don't panic. And I'm very good at it in those stressful situations, and equally in some there's no comparison because there's no life or death, but there's genuine life or death when you're, 40 meters, 30 meters underwater. But I've tap danced in those meetings on occasion when IT's gone down or something hasn't happened. A quick joke or just break the tension. But I did say to people listening, hey, I'm going to pause, I'm going to go quiet, and all I will do is magically edit this, and it will come back straight away. You won't even notice. So, welcome back.
Thank you.
And don't worry about it. Honestly, it's fine. This is the fun thing of doing these things from home in our pajamas. I'm in my pajamas, you're not in yours. We can just kind of make it carry on and crack on. You were literally going to just say something really profound and poetic as well before you dropped off. I think, it was probably going to be the highlight of the entire series so far, but you dropped off.
Did it start with anything? What was the story?
I don't remember. I wasn't listening that much. I don't remember. It's fine. I'm joking. Clearly, I think. Look, we were talking about kind of manifesting your own set of roles and new opportunities.
Yeah, or networking.
Yeah. And it comes up a lot.
I don't know whether you heard, but this week I've got a conversation which only manifested itself because of 6 other previous conversations, and
yeah.
That was the piece I was making.
No, and that I think that's clearly it's a weird strategy, but it's got to be a strategy for everyone. It's like, take that phone call, meet that person. A mate of mine is interested in chatting to you. Cool, I'll talk to them, because you just don't know at the moment, and they might have something that your seniority or experience may just be required. And like you say, there's not necessarily a JD out there, but you just never know where those conversations are going to go, right? I think we're in that stage where being super open to random chats is an important part of navigating the Badlands. So
absolutely. And you don't know what you're going to get. Every conversation when you meet someone, you don't know what that will unlock. So we talked about we're now connected. Who knew I was going to do a podcast, right? We're now connected.
God, I knew.
Well, you may have. Richard Robinson, he's a huge connector of people.
Honestly, he really is, isn't he?
I never knew Richard before having been introduced to him and the work and the value that he's bringing to organizations. And he also connects people, and we're now connected. And then I have a platform. And then who knows what that knock-on effect is. There are people who got out of their way to unlock what you need. And people think that they offer value in different ways. I have people who want to coach me. Like I'll show up on a call saying, hey, this is, who I am and where I am. And they go, oh, have you thought about? And they try and coach me, which is kind, and they add value. And I'm not knocking it. Some people just sort of lean in and go, who do you need to know? Who do I have in my network?
Do I
have? Some people go, oh, I could give you a small project. Like the number of people that have done a consumer journey, or I've earlier in the year, I facilitated a process to create a innovation pipeline. For us, and these are the projects that I've got through my network, which keep me in the game. And then there are things which I've done previous in my career, but people help in so many different ways, whether that's empathy or whether that's connections. And you don't know what you're going to get at the start of a call.
No, and I had a random one yesterday morning, and it was nothing to do with anything in terms of here's an output beyond just great to connect, super interesting, sharing a few little kind of war stories. This person's not out of work, they've got this thing, but they do a different podcast, and it was just fascinating. And the value in the human connection, which I think we may be slightly losing when we lean on technology so much, it's really come back to the forefront of kind of solving this for a lot of senior folk, I think. And Richard Richard's getting a lot of shout outs on this, but Richard has a thing that he talks about, and I'm sure he'll talk about in depth on his podcast, so I won't do a disservice. But he talks about, you've got your 9 to 5 job, but equally the really successful people also work 5 till 9, but not work as in doing work, but just meeting people, connecting, going to things, showing up, networking. It's like it's a second part of your existence in your career, and it's a really vital thing that certainly the older you get, it becomes more and more important because people equally value seniority and experience, and it might not just come from someone thinking they need it, but then in conversation with you go, gee, actually, I need Dawn to come in and sort this thing out. Do you know what I mean? And it can come from that as much as anything. So I think it might be a good way to wrap this up. It's like you could either be serendipitous like me and go, someone will call me, or you can be super analytical like Dawn and have a incredibly structured, rigorous AI supercomputer managing every second of her day, or somewhere in between. But I think the important part is people, connections, showing up, being positive, putting good stuff out into the universe. The universe will probably respond. The pendulum's going to swing back. We're not all fucked. It's all good. Dawn, what was the thing that made me laugh the other day that I got you to say? Was it code?
Oh, I'm going to learn how to code.
Good.
I'm going to code again.
I sometimes forget people are going to listen to this, and this isn't just me talking to you, but I forget sometimes, so I apologize. But when you said that the other week, it made my day. Absolutely made my day. So I can't thank you enough, Dawn, for taking this time. I'm so relieved that Reclaim AI made space in your diary for this for me. And
I think you'll find I prioritized it.
Oh, well, that's really sweet. That's really sweet. You had to beat the supercomputer into letting you do it, basically. I'm doing this one. No. So look, I can't thank you enough for your time. Clearly, you're a smart cookie who's done some amazing stuff at some amazing places. And yeah, it's a travesty that, again, someone like you is having to fight a little bit harder than I think is fair or warranted given your experience. But I'm sure people listening to this will take a lot from listening to you. Certainly your positivity, it's infectious. And I when you dropped off the call, Dawn, I did say I was feeling pretty low this morning before I started this, but I'm buzzing now. I've spoken to you again, so I can't thank you enough for that. And I hope everyone listening comes away with a little bit of something to think about and take into their own journey and trying to find their way out of the Badlands. So with that, I will
get in touch.
I will thank you so much. And yeah, obviously when we put this out, everyone get in touch with Dawn if you need her to show you how to run your diary, first and foremost, and then everything else after that, I'm sure she can help you with as well. Just stay on the line a second, Dawn, but yeah, thank you so much for your time.